which we thought was funny because it was like
redundant.
Redundant, right? Okay, so this guy was, I think his real name was Kevin.
Typical Special K. Yep.
He was living in the woods, and when we first came upon him, he didn't talk. Like, he just kind of like danced and gestured. So he when I first came upon him, like, he was like gesturing to me and like making all of these movements. But he showed up where I was camped. He showed up with 2 other guys who were southbounders. They were going like a different direction than I was. And they were just like, we don't know who this guy is, but like, he's been hanging out with us for the past day. And so he's just like gesturing to me, and I'm like, okay, I'll come join the fun. Let's see what's going on with this guy. He doesn't have a shirt on, and he just has these like very dirty pants.
Yeah, like a hippie Jesus.
Very long hair. Yes.
If you told ChatGPT and even Deep whatever, they would both come out with the photo of that person you're describing to the T. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So he comes over and he's gesturing, and then he proceeds to show me that he has this like pile of mushrooms sitting like.
Oh, he's my best
friend. They were like in like this sack. Not those kind of mushrooms.
He didn't.
Now I'm surprised.
They were like they were like the hen of the woods, and so he's pointing at these mushrooms and then pointing at the fire. Like, these guys had built a fire. So he's pointing at these mushrooms and he's pointing at this fire. And we're like, what do you want? Do you want to like cook the mushrooms, or do you need to borrow a pot with some water? And he's like, yeah. So then we're like, okay, here's a pot. Here's some water. Well, he takes that and then he starts going. He like legit just starts going through all of our stuff, ripping out our food bags and just like ripping through our food bags.
They're like vampires. You give them permission to have one thing, they think they could have everything.
If you just gave them water, you guys would have wine. I mean, you got to see where the story is going. Yeah.
Yeah, you gave Hippie Jesus the wrong gift.
Yeah, some loaves and fishes, and you guys would be set.
Maybe some myrrh.
Instead, you had mescaline and like some Birkenstocks, and it's not going to go the way you think it is.
So like, he's digging through your stuff.
He does cook. So he ends up cooking these mushrooms, and he cooks us these forest burritos out of like random things out of all of our food bags combined. And like,
was it good?
That he had found.
Was it good?
Yes. But I was I was so scared to eat it because I don't know mushrooms. And I'm like, I don't know what this guy picked.
Valid point. Yeah.
Or if he knows how to pick mushrooms. Did he get them off the one wood that the real ones would never grow on?
Yes. He pranced.
He pranced.
All of the time. So
there was no picture in my mind where he was not also prancing.
I was the only one. Like, these guys are just like letting him. So he continues to like go through our food bags, and he took out like this one dude's jar of peanut butter and just starts like licking it off of his hands and stuff. And I was just like, nope, I'm done. I'm going to bed. Goodbye. And so the next morning I get up, and here he comes. I kid you, prancing over to where my tarp is. And he's like gesturing for me to come back. And at this point, I kid you not, the dude has like flower petals in his eyelashes. He is just
beautiful,
like covered in nature and just prancing and gesturing me. So I'm like, oh my God, I need to get water and I need to get the heck out of here. Yeah. So the creek, he's gesturing me like towards where the creek is, and then he like veers off and he's like showing me this thing that he built. And I like look over, and he built a toilet seat. And I was like,
terrible place to stop, but I just want to clarify. He's pantomiming this, right? Like, we are full on like, okay.
He's never said a word the whole time.
He's doing these movements. Like,
of course, yes. Feng Shui, pantomiming.
He built a toilet in the woods.
Yep, I'm sorry.
And he was like,
where was the GoPro?
Like, he wanted me to like sit down on it. He was like trying to get me to like take a turn on it. And I'm just like, no. Like,
you have a camera. No. I know your Jesus
I'm good.
Ass
like,
has
I'm
a
good.
GoPro.
So then
waterproof
he proceeds then to take his own pants down and sit down on it. And, like he's like
show
showing
you in case
me.
You didn't know how
he's
to poop.
showing me.
Yes.
This is how you do it. And I just walked away. I walked away.
I fuck out.
Didn't get water. I just packed up my stuff.
Did he say a word the entire time?
No.
I hope he had like a
not the entire time. Voice. Not the entire time that I knew him.
Really? Yeah.
And I knew him for the entire.
Knew him. Wait.
The entire next day. Listen, the entire next day. This guy, he doesn't have a pack on, right? He's not carrying 30 pounds. He's just galloping through the forest with nothing.
Right. Is he real?
He is.
So wait, listen to this. He had a sack, right? That he had these mushrooms in. But the next day on the trail, he didn't have that sack. And then at one point, and this is like 7-8 miles later, he comes prancing out of the woods and he has this book that's made out of tree bark that has like, he's like taking note of all of like the foliage in the forest. And like, it's like this book and he's like showing it to me and he's like, look, this book.
We need to
find
him.
I want that book. I want that book. I will buy that book. Get that guy in front of me. I will mortgage the house.
Yeah, clearly you don't play Skyrim because this is obviously an NPC from this, and they're just there's.
He was going to send you on a quest.
Yeah, and you would have got a really cool staff, like with +5 agility, but instead you're like, this dick doesn't speak. I'm out. Like,
or maybe the important part of the story is that you really don't know your mushrooms, and Kevin never really existed, but you did eat those mushrooms.
Yeah, you ate mushrooms that day. Like, how do you know his name was Kevin? If he didn't say a word.
I swear it's Kevin. It has to be.
Oh my God.
It has to be Kevin. I promise.
Deep down inside, Kevin's the friends we made along the way.
That is the most legit question that I've heard, though, is how do you know his name's Kevin? Because now I'm questioning.
All things awesome will now be referred to as Kevin on this show. It's now written in stone. That's a Kevin moment.
But Kevin, Kevin is your first of 2 stories.
Please tell me that was not the creepy one.
No, that wasn't the creepy one. He was just weird.
He sounds like a nice guy, honestly.
No, it's a great guy. I would totally chill with Kevin. You know, I'd probably use hand sanitizer, which I never use because before eating a forest burrito. But yeah.
No. He used moss.
That sounds dirtier than I think he meant it.
That's true. Yeah. Good old moss.
Can you say? Can you say eating a forest burrito like a little bit slower?
Eating a forest.
No, Dan.
Oh.
It just sounds dirty coming out of his mouth.
Nope, I'm not. Josh right now has got his finger on the clip button. Not happening. I got this.
I shouldn't have said anything. Oh my gosh.
No, it's okay. It's going to get clipped anyway.
No.
Yeah.
We'll get him saying
what I just said right there, that's going to get clipped. See, this is how this works is you have to live in a perpetual state of anxiety when you hang out with these guys. They're my best friends and they're monsters. So that's why I like hearing stories about Hippie Jesus.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Second creepiest interesting time on the trail.
Whew, this one's creepy. I like to tell this one around Halloween, actually. But I was alone for probably like 8 or 9 days. It was quite a time period. It felt like that I didn't see anybody. I saw not a soul. I didn't talk to a human.
Did that affect you?
It was over a week. Definitely, absolutely. Yeah. Have you ever watched the show Alone? Like that shit's real. You don't talk to another human or interact with someone. Like, yeah, you're honestly you're in yourself. It happens after 2 days. But this was like a pretty long stint that I hadn't seen anyone. I hadn't talked to anyone.
Right.
And I typically didn't like to stay at shelters because I like to camp. Shelters, there's usually mice. There's other people. I like to, be off on my own.
You're camping for a reason.
At least for sleeping, to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, people snore. People are annoying. I was going to sleep. Anyways.
I did a lot.
So I was craving human interaction, and Punchbowl Shelter was the name of the shelter. I could not for the life. So I guess it's in Virginia, but I get to Punchbowl Shelter and it's gorgeous. Like there's a little pond and there's like this big flat grassy space that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's perfect with these 2 perfect trees to set my tarp up. And as I'm walking up to it, I get this like terrible feeling that I'm not alone. And someone's watching me. And I was just like, man, do I go to the shelter or do I just keep hiking? I needed water. So there's a water source there.
Sure.
So I'm like, well, I'm at least going to get water and then I'll go. So I'm walking up to the shelter and I just have this, I've got a weird feeling, but I did it anyways because I was dumb. And I walk in front of the shelter and I turn and I was like, oh, holy shit. There was a guy sitting in the back of the shelter, just like hunched up in the corner of it. And so and his eyes were like so big. And I'm taken aback. I'm like, holy shit, someone's in there. And then I look and I'm like, okay, he's got a backpack. He's got trekking poles. He's wearing boots. I'm like, okay, he's a hiker.
At least, yeah, not a townie. Yeah.
Right. I'm like, okay. So I'm playing it cool. And I'm just like, oh, hey, how you doing, man? You know, how long you been at the shelter? And he's just like crunched up in the corner. He's just like, I can't leave. I can't get out of here. Can you help me get out of here? I can't leave. And I'm just like, oh, okay.
Right. What do I do?
I'm actually waiting. I think I told him like, oh, my boyfriend's coming down the trail. Like I used that. I was like, oh, my boyfriend, he's
my boyfriend would be coming to back me up. You kidding me?
I'm not staying. I'm hiking out. And then he gets up and he's like, can I leave? Can I leave with you? Will you take me with you? Will you take me with you? I need to get off this mountain. And he starts saying something about the noisy neighbors. He kept talking about the noisy neighbors. Like the noisy neighbors, they won't leave me be. Like they won't let me go. I can't get off this mountain. And I'm just like, dude, oh God, like you need to stay here. So then I'm like changing my tune because I don't want him following me down the trail either. So I'm like, you know what? It's really nice here. I think I'm gonna spend the night. I think I'll stay. And he's like, okay. I'll stay with you if you let me leave with you in the morning. And I'm like, sure, definitely. Like we'll stay. I'm gonna go set up my stuff. Like you stay here. And he's pacing back and forth in the shelter, and he keeps going like, get out of my head. Like, leave me alone. Let me go. And I'm just like, holy shit. I was so freaked out by this guy's energy and like just what he was doing.
I'm
like,
freaked out with how you're telling the story.
So I actually pulled out my cell phone. I turned it on and I started walking like on top of these like boulders that were near, and I'm just like trying to get service, right? I ended up getting enough bars. I called B-Man. Like he was the number. I call him and I was like, what do I do? And he's like, hike out, grab your stuff and start walking. And then I'm like, okay, all right. So I told the guy I was staying the night. So I'm like, I'm just going to go get my stuff and I'm going to leave. And he just kept following me around. He was like in tears at one point. And I'm like, this guy's like, he's on an acid trip, or that's what I'm like. He's
hopefully at the very least, it's just acid. Yeah.
I'm like, he needs to just sleep this off. Like, I'm not the person to be here with him though. Like he was way too erratic. So I pack up and I dipped, like, and I could hear him when I got back up to the trail. He was screaming. At like the top of his lungs, like, get me the fuck out of here. And I'm just like, holy crap. So I hike out and I'm in a panic, and I'm hiking like at this point, it's like 8-9 o'clock at night. Like I went until midnight. Like I just kept walking, and I finally felt okay. It's like I got to this road crossing. It was like I was out of that forest. I can't remember what national forest that was, but I was out of there. I was crossing a road, and I remember there being a sign that I was like entering a different national forest. When I crossed that road, I had this like weight just lifted off of me. I was like, okay, I'm far enough away. I feel good. I feel fine. So a couple days later, I'm hiking up the Three Sisters Mountains, and this guy comes like right at sundown. I had already set up for camp, and I see this headlight like coming up the hill, and it was a hiker. And so he's, other than this crazy dude that I just saw in the shelter, like this is the first person I've interacted with in now about like 13, 14 days. So I'm like, he comes up and I like kind of wave him down. I had a little fire built that had gone out, but I had still had some coal. So I was like building up a fire, telling him to come over, drops his pack. His name's Crank because he cranks out miles. And
did he give himself that name?
Probably not. No.
Okay.
No. I only hiked with him for one day. I only hiked with him for a single day. Actually, I hiked with him the day that I was with Hippie Jesus. It was that next day that Hippie Jesus showed up.
Everything comes back to Kevin.
Hippie Jesus.
Like I said, guys,
Freaking
everything
Kevin.
comes back to Kevin. This will be canon. This will be this show.
This guy though, Crank. So I'm like, dude, have you seen anyone? Like, who have you passed on the trail? Because I'm like, at this point, I'm far enough in the trail that like I know the hikers that are out there, who's around, who's behind us, who's behind me. And he's like, I had the craziest experience. And I was like, okay, tell me about it. So he tells me he gets to Punchbowl Shelter. And there's this dude there that's like freaking out because he can't get off the mountain. And he told me that his name was Music Man, the crazy guy. He was like, and I stayed there that night. This is Crank talking. He's like, I stayed there that night. And I, the next morning, because I told him like he could follow me out. And he was up the entire night, just like talking to the walls, like talking about these noisy neighbors and not leaving him be. And he said, the next morning, he got up and he hadn't slept at all, this dude. And he said, and we hiked and we got down off the mountain. He said, but it wasn't until we crossed the road into, I think it was Jefferson National Forest. He's like, when we crossed the road, he was like, I kid you not. This guy, like, he crossed the road. He dropped his pack. He turned around. He looked at me and he was like, thank you. And then he looked at the mountain and he was like, fuck you. You'll never hold me hostage again. And he looked at Crank again and he was like, I feel like a fog has been lifted. He was like, thank you so much for getting me off of there. He was like, that was wild. That was wild. He said after that, they had this like great conversation about music and how he got the name Music Man. He plays all these instruments and, and he had told him, he was like, how he felt like he was trapped up there by like these, it was something spiritual, like had a grasp on him. He could not leave. He said he tried to leave. He said the day that I ran into him, that day he tried to leave the shelter and ended up going the opposite direction that he was supposed to, like 10 miles and having to turn back. And he ended up back at that shelter that he was just like, and he said it happened twice, actually. He was like, it happened twice that I left and I went the wrong way and I keep ending up back here. And he said,
I wonder if there's like some psychosis trigger, like some way the mountains look or something that just triggers this psychosis in the, I'm an amateur at the, I don't like, but when he got off the mountain, he was normal and able to have conversations and was totally lucid about what he was like up there too.
Totally normal.
I don't think this is creepy. I think that's phenomenal. Like that's
a hell of a story. I still think you did the right thing. You absolutely did the right thing. Getting the hell out of there. Yeah. Like, I mean, he might have been in distress, but you weren't the person to help him, like
no.
Yeah.
No, I know what I can and cannot handle at moments like that. I could not handle that. But when the next time I got into town, like, and I had internet and everything, and I freaking Googled it, and Punchbowl Shelter, was a murder shelter. Like someone was murdered there in like the 80s. So
and that man was
Kevin
never existed. He was in your head the entire time. This is awesome. Sorry.
Yeah, it was the next day though, after hearing that ghost story around this little fire with Crank. The next morning is when we meet Hippie Jesus. Or no, it had to have been the next evening. It was the next day because I was with Crank.
So you had at least some levity in your life.
Yeah,
after all that, I mean, like, listen, finally.
Joe, glass half full. Music Man hates garbage music. he would have been like, and then I liked Limp Bizkit and Cold Chamber, and they shaped my life. And then you'd have to listen to that literally for like 2,000 miles. You didn't want that. You didn't want that. Listen, Crank took care of it. He was a good egg. I like Crank. He completed
Crank,
Music Man's thing.
Yeah.
Music Man, I'm pretty sure he got off the trail after that. Like,
I honestly hope Music Man's okay. And if
it's such a good story, though.
Yeah, I want to find out if Music Man turned out okay. Like, I'd love to hear what really happened or what he thinks happened. Like
his part of the story. That's the greatest part. Yeah,
I don't want to hike with him. I don't want to hike with him. But
the main character, which is Joe, and then you have all these side, you have
a story. Please put it in a book.
Yeah,
that's my job here now to get you to write that book.
You're gonna bully her into.
Hey, before we go, this will be my last question. The obvious one is: do you want to go back in the Appalachian Trail? Of course you do. Do you have any other trails you really want to hike?
I plan on the PCT is going to be my retirement. I would like for that to be like my later in life hike.
I hear it's more brutal in some ways. No, never mind. It's not. It's the opposite. No.
Well,
I've heard stories about it.
You're going to have elements are completely different. You got a lot of desert on the West Coast to begin with. And then you have the high Sierras. It's like, there's dramatics
more
to
elevation.
it.
Yeah.
More elevation. However, the grade at which you're walking, the PCT was designed for pack animals. So it's a much easier grade. So you're going longer miles to get higher elevations, but you're not jamming the crap out of your knees consistently while you're doing it. Whereas like on the East Coast, they thought it would be cool to make trails that just went like straight up and straight down, like over the tallest.
Here's your trail. Good luck.
That you can. Which now, obviously in recent years, they're discovering that that's actually really bad for the environment and erosion is not a good thing. And so they're rerouting the trail. And that's why the Appalachian Trail is actually getting longer every year because they're continuing to reroute it around these kind of straight up.
I'm glad they're thinking about these things. Is this good for can we make it better for the environment if we move people over to the left a little bit? I think to even think about it instead of, well, that's what it's always been. That's what it'll always be. Which tends to be how humans operate a lot lately is.
I love that last word lately.
I see it more and more. I want it the way it used to be. And the older I get, the more I'm like, no, I don't. 80s were cool and all, but so hey, I want to thank you for coming here and talking to us. It's been amazing. And giving us the extra half an hour and 2 amazing stories.
Sorry.
So much.
Not just
Joe Cole.
Awesome.
No, thank you. I love talking to you. Thank you so much. Let's get the heck out of here. And
this has been great.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Let's play us out, JD.
Elliot Fagan with the real Sasquatch. All right. Hey guys, it's 2025. We did it.
We did it. Season 3.
Oh my goodness, that is quite a question.
Oh, you are so funny. That is so true. You're like the only person that's ever asked me that question.
I'm really glad that you noticed that you pointed that out.
So I just want to give you a shout out and say it's appreciated.
It's been so fun chatting with you guys. I didn't realize how late it got.
I'll always talk to you guys.
Thanks very much. And again, you guys are super well prepared. You got your act together. I hope you continue to get more viewers. You deserve them.
You guys, you are the first podcast to bring this up, and I'm impressed. I'm really impressed.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a great one. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Be safe out there. Treat each other well.